Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good today. I feel a little tired. I'm having a tired week. Every now and then my body has a tired week, and I'm really feeling it this week. But otherwise, I'm doing great.
Good.
How about you?
Slept pretty good last night. That's kind of rare lately. Seems like there's a lot going on in my head. So when I wake up, it's on. Everything, all the lights are on in my head. I can't turn them off. Wheel starts spinning. Today that was at 4:30. Not that earlier than normal, or that earlier, much earlier than I normally get up, but it's like, yeah, I guess it's time. I have my inspector coming this morning at 11. So I just have my mind like in a bunch of different pots trying to figure out all the questions I need to ask. How ready do I need to be? What do I need to have at my disposal? Trying to show like I know what I'm doing or knew what I was doing, and like whatever, all the stuff that's going on in my head, but it's all guessing at what I need to be ready for when it happens. But I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot, even though I don't know. So I think I feel pretty good, even though I'm not sure. As opposed to the last several months where I definitely wasn't sure and was not okay at all. So
it's happening.
The saga continues. Anyways, I can report back to you on that one next week, maybe. This week, I floated an idea. Coachability. Are you coachable? So before I go into the couple of things that I thought about when I thought about coachability, is there anything in particular that comes to your mind when I flash this on the screen?
Well, what came to me was the opposite side, which is how do you know when someone's coachable? The other version of it. And I think, like our feedback model, it's a two-way street. The second thing that came to me when I thought, okay, my question about, well, when am I coachable? And I'm thinking, moment to moment, I'm coachable and not coachable. And I noticed that in me. So how do I stay open when I know that I need to be in the coaching realm of conversation to help me, even though I may be resisting that?
So let's dig into that a little bit. So how do you know that you're not coachable?
When you're describing a bit of what your check-in was, when I'm swirling so much that I don't even have room to hear myself, hear others. I actually don't even want to be near people. And that's rare for me. I love being around. I'm an extrovert. So I know that I'm not coachable in that moment or in that frame of my mind and my body. That's my cue.
So is that like a no-go zone at all, or is there a way that you're able to kind of flip things around and become coachable from them?
I would say it's a no-go zone. And I'll even give people that clue that I'm just not in a place right now. Please don't take it personally. I just need to let this stuff get out of my system my own way. I need to spend time with myself first. So don't take it personally. I need to just go away. For me, and I've explained this in my check-ins in the past, is that a physical exercise really helps me. Whether it's walking, cleaning the bathroom, going to the gym on the elliptical and putting music on. Like, I literally know when I am just so rattled, I have no capacity at all to start to dig into what's really going on inside of me and why I'm being the way I am right now. How about you?
Yeah, I think I I'll have it's a spectrum, I find, of completely uncoachable to completely wide open. And like you, when I'm in that bottom third, let's say, yeah, there's nothing going to penetrate. I don't want to be asked a question. I want to be in my pity party or whatever the case may be. I'm not open to there being a possibility. But if I'm above that bottom third, let's say, I might be irritated about where I'm at, but I'm open enough to allow in some possibilities, some questions, some realm of exploration in my topic. And I find if I can get into that spot, then I can move further up the spectrum, at least for a while. This actually brings me to something I was going to bring up later, but even if you are coachable on the spectrum, there's a point at which you become not coachable anymore because you've got enough. And I think a lot of people who struggle in the work that we do, that we want to coach them for that full hour or whatever the case may be, or the full 10 minutes. But at some point along the path, we got what we needed, and we don't need any more now. It might be great next week or next month or whatever, but now I have enough. So for me, I move back down the spectrum of coachability down to not at all. So it's almost like, it's like our cup metaphor. And once you fill up the feedback cup to a certain point, it's going to overflow at some point. Nothing will get in.
Well, I think that's what, we've talked about this in the past. Someone says, when do you know when to use the coaching, tool in your toolkit when our amateurs are working on bringing this into everyday conversations? Starting with the question, if someone's, you can see they're stuck on the hamster wheel, frustrated, the question, what do you need from me right now? So you just describe the other thing that can happen is, once I'm out of I'm so aware of what I need to do now for myself to move towards being coachable. I need to expel energy, physical energy out of my body. I know that about myself. But when someone does that for me, and this about me, and I need to do what do you call it, the diarrhea dump, where I need to let it all out. And you're really good at holding space for that. So not just you maybe fill their cup, letting people empty their cup first. That whole idea of the possibility of coaching shows up when someone has emptied all their cup as well. And there may be a silence there after you've heard it. And then the question, you can say, can I ask you a question about what you just said? Or there's, what's that nugget that you heard over and over again, and as they spewed their diarrhea, or as I do. And, the clue that, well, maybe there's something in there that would serve her, that I can give back to her. So it's not this pretty look sometimes. I think that's what we're kind of getting to, is there's so many ways in to creating space for potential possible opportunities to support that person, and that they're ready to be coached. Because you have to be vulnerable when you're being coached, to kind of let people know what's messy, or what you're concerned about, or what that first step you're a little worried about taking. Because that's often what's at the beginning of moving forward for all of us.
Yeah, the vulnerability is key, and oftentimes we can't even get there. I don't know why I keep thinking of it was an Eckhart Tolle book, and it was his metaphor that he gave about emptying a suitcase. And it wasn't until you took all the pieces out of the suitcase that you could identify what was the one thing that I wanted to look at or to work on. And I often gravitate towards that, because that's your dump in this. And if you can provide that space for others to let it out, they can decide what it is that they want to explore or work on, if they want to. And that's the opportunity that I like to try to take if I can. But I always put it in I put it in their hands. Is there something there you'd want to explore? So they now know whether or not it's on their terms, if they want to or not. Maybe just the act of emptying the suitcase, what may have been enough for them to be able to kind of just breathe. But if they're not ready to grab the thing that even if they said that's what I want to work on, if they're not ready to do that, it's not, there's no opening.
Or another one's opening up.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to even abandoning the topic they started with,
Right.
or the thing they were perhaps narrating for the last 10 minutes. And then, you realize that isn't even, they're not willing to go there because that's not really what they need to talk about or explore. And so, yeah, so it's everyone has a different way to get, what's coming up for me is we all have our own way of being ready and open and arriving at a place where, okay, now I'm settled and I'd like to explore this. And as you know, Ian, I've been asked several times over the last few years that we've been together to be the person being coached.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through that holy poop mode all the time. Oh gosh, what's the topic going to be? Like, what am I going to talk about? Do I have anything to talk about? Like, I need to make sure it's relevant to the crowd. No, I don't need to make sure it's relevant to the crowd. It needs to be relevant to me. So, I go through all of that and I'm thinking, worrying that I'm not going to have something to be coached on. And then all of a sudden I say, stop all of that. There's me going away, going all over the place. And I go in for a walk, or I get on the elliptical machine, or I move my body, and then boop, there it is. I can be coached on this. This is really going to be helpful for me. And there's an important thing we think coaching is about fixing something.
Mm.
Where I see coaching is, this is really going to help me move, help me discern, help me find some peace, help me get some clarity. I use it as a tool for me to just feel a little bit more settled and
Mm-hmm.
clear about that particular topic that I'm thinking about. So I don't, last week I didn't want any outcomes on my coaching conversation because I think we focus too much on that. It's, what does Karen need? There's the word. And last week I wanted to brainstorm, and that served me so well in getting unstuck. But if I had to come with an action, something I could do, I don't know if I would have had anything to bring last week.
And I think that's a valuable lesson for all of us, that we're stuck in the process somewhere in something. It may not, you're right, it may not be the action stage. It might be a contemplative stage. It might be a how am I being stage. How do I want to be in the thing without doing anything yet? So I always appreciate those conversations with you, even if I'm not ready to act on the thing that I'm stuck in at the moment. Just having this space to be in it with somebody else, where they're able to either ask you a different question or a different angle, or even help you give language to something that you haven't given language to yet, and to sit in it with that new perspective can be everything, can be a game changer. And yet you on the outside might not see anything happen. We talked about it with this whole deck permit thing for me as well. It was my shift in the way I saw this was it lifted off the burden of all the things that I have to do, because all the things can get done somehow. But how I see it was keeping me stuck. How I was being in it was keeping me stuck, and how I felt in it was awful. But that conversation that we ended up having opened me up to a different possibility, which wasn't in my consciousness at the time. So being coachable has levels. Being coachable has states in it as well. There's something I wanted to bring up with you around coachability, and it had to do with, and you've brought this up with me in private conversations about levels of consciousness.
Mm.
And I wondered how that, if you could maybe explain that a little bit, and then how does it play into coaching?
Well, this is okay. I'll talk about levels of consciousness. There's a whole, you can Google this. There are levels of consciousness in society. And they start at what they call the egocentric level, which is it's all about me. And then the conformist level, which is all about what are the rules. And we live, 70% of the world lives in conformist and egocentric levels of consciousness. These are not negative levels. Because often people hear it that way. And then the next level is achievist, where you start to move up and you see a bigger part of the world that you want to influence, you want to make an impact. There's a higher purpose about why you're doing something. And often a lot of the world of coaching lays in that world where we want to have a larger influence of impact. And then there's affiliative, and there's several more up through the levels of consciousness. So can I tell my story? Because I think I'm laughing at myself when I tell this story. So in my coaching certification, we learned about all the levels of consciousness, and then we had to read, kind of where we thought we were. So I had kind of come in at the top of the conformist, moving into the achievist. Obviously, I'm working in the world of coaching, so I've got a little bit more awareness of a larger context. And then we get into groups to talk about our levels. And the two other people in my cohort have put themselves at the affiliative level, which is a level higher than the achievist. And we talked for 15 minutes. And I did not understand a word. This is why it's important. And
Yeah.
I'm going, oh my God. And I'm like going down, like I have no idea this.
I have so much to learn.
And because again, of course, moving up in levels of consciousness for coaching allows you to have access to more. But it was such a good learning for me, because if 70% of the world lives and breathes and sees the world in the conformist and egocentric level, I needed to be able to listen. And because it's in me too, by the way, we move up and down levels of consciousness. So it was really helpful for me to realize my language, the way I spoke in my coaching world to my children, it was changing. And there was a chapter in my book, as you know, that I haven't wrote yet, which is about when you no longer fit, being an outsider. So I realized that was not going to be a good way to serve, to be feeling like I'm an outsider. So coming into that. So just being aware that where are people kind of seeing their worlds at, and to be able to speak in their world of language. I mean, I'm a rules conformist person. I want to belong. I want to be seen as, part of something. That never goes away. There's sometimes in my egocentric world, I have a deep desire to, get what I want and need. That's not a bad thing. So when you're meeting somebody, just to be aware, where are they kind of sitting? So that was big learning for me.
I can relate to that a lot too, because every now and then I think that I've come a long way, but then I get wrapped up in things around me here, and it's all about what's around me and how it's not working, and you kind of get bogged down by all of that stuff. So I actually see this as relevant on that spectrum of coachability as well. Are you coachable? Are you not coachable? Are you open? And I think you can play in that spectrum a little bit. But there are going to be some people who are not coachable. It doesn't matter how open you are and what you're inviting them to do, or they're not there. And in high likelihood, you won't be attracted to them to want to coach them anyways, because they'll be so far off the spectrum that it's not going to serve anybody. It's not going to serve them. It's not going to serve you. But how do you, because we speak about meeting people where they are and how valuable that is in coaching. So if they're at all coachable, how do you meet them where they're at?
It's interesting because I'm noticing with everything that's going on in the world, that's my rework right now, because I'm feeling so much frustration with the world. I'm wanting to soften my way back into that again. So it's my practice right now to meet people where they are, because what I'm hearing sometimes is not at all how I feel or see the world. And so I think that is our work in general right now, is how do we bring back the ability to let people be where they are, there's the words, and get curious from there. So getting into their kind of where they at, what's typically, there's something deeply deep in their values that may even be challenging, that they're being challenged on right now because the world is a little shook up. So just staying curious with them and what they want to make happen, and serving them from there. And when I get in, you talk about when you're in that place as in the role of a coach, you just feel how much you're serving them. So staying open and just following where their energy is right now. And often they're reminded where they want to be and not where they are. So it's helping them see where they are, and is that where you want to be and what you want to make happen. And they're often realizing that they want to make some shifts in themselves because of what they want to make happen and kind of where their mindset's at right now. I don't know if that makes sense. But that's what I find I'm spending more time on now. I think we're all a little shook up. So I'm hearing that more and more in my coaching conversations. What about you?
I think all of these levels are coachable at some point, even if they're stuck in the egocentric is what you called it, right? Especially if you can tap into where do they want to be and why do they want it. Again, if they're open enough, and I fluctuate up and down this scale on a daily basis, sometimes from moment to moment. So if I can recognize it in myself, I can recognize that in others, at least a potential willingness to move up and down a little bit. It might not be the full spectrum. It might just be a couple gradients up and down, but it doesn't mean that it's not worthy to ask some questions and see what's open for people and if they're willing to go somewhere.
Well, growth isn't just this way in the levels of consciousness. It's also this way. So we have to grow this way and this to get to this way. So how do you support that person to become fully aware and tap into that, so that, and then, invite the beginnings of the next level of awareness and consciousness. So it's broad and then up. So it always starts with self-awareness. And so a lot of my practices, when I was doing a lot more coaching, you always start with self-awareness. Observe yourself. There's two people, you inside here and you in the doing world. So getting people to notice, how are they being in here and what are they doing out there, or what they want to do out there. And so aligning these two first is so important. So when people become aware of my internal mindset, feelings, emotions, beliefs and values, and then they're out of sync with what I want to make happen out here, that's where the growth starts to happen. So levels of consciousness is really building the capacity to be very aware of your surroundings and of yourself. So that self-awareness and self-observation development is core to our own growth, regardless of what level of consciousness we're in. And I believe if we want to move forward in our lives in a different way, which most of our clients, that's why they come. They want to make something happen, and they've tried different things and it's not happening for them. So they come so they can say, well, I want to grow, but I'm stuck and I'm not quite sure what I need to move to the next, to make that happen. So it's internal and external.
Yeah. a lot of my first interactions with people, or if I decide to give them a tool that I think is going to support them, they're often center around, becoming more aware and looking back at your situation and how you are a part of this manifestation in whatever form, so that you can change potentially the way that you operate inside of that. There was something else, just in writing the word coachability. It was because we've had responsible, and I was thinking of coachability as in its own skill, like for you to be coachable, you need to have a certain willingness to be there. And you're an amazing coachee, by the way, and I believe that serves you in your ability to coach as well, because you're able to play in both roles and play fully. I think it allows you to understand the full spectrum of what coaching is. What do you think makes a good coachee?
What I have come to know about being a coachee, and I think this is really important, is I get to own the space. So I think, and that's why I'm so happy I have been coached so many times, for obviously for a couple of years. I mean, I literally have grown exponentially, thankfully, because I've been encouraged to be the coachee in our practices. I'm just so happy, and I needed to be the coachee. I needed that. But what I love about being in that chair is I drive that. I let you know what I need, and that is, I know that that's so true, that I don't lose my power. There's the biggest core value in any kind of coaching environment, including professional coaching: mutual trust, mutual respect. There's no power here. The driver is the coachee. And so this is why you talked about meeting the coachee where they are. And maybe it's because it's you, Ian, but I've actually experienced this when we go into breakouts, and sometimes I'm with a professional amateur coach from our workshops, the ones that are practicing this as an amateur. They're really good at letting me have my power, my drive. Now, I also influence that by saying, well, I want to go here. But what I'm amazed by is the permission they give me to go there. So I think if we could, as we develop the coaching muscles, especially in this work that we're doing, people know that you have no responsibility. That sounds horrible what I'm saying, but to, ask questions and hold that space and let them drive the bus. What happens, I find I enjoy being a coachee because I get more clarity, but I'm also still navigating and building muscles on my topic and how I want to be in my topic and what I want to get some clarity around. So I feel quite empowered, even though I know I'm being vulnerable, often in front of many people, on a topic that really matters to me. I still feel, I'm going to use the word in control. I hope that doesn't sound horrible.
Well, we used to use that, and this was more you than me, but we used to use the steering wheel metaphor. You're the CEO of your life. So you're the one driving. And if the coach can honor that paradigm that the coachee is the lead, we're a passenger on in their car while they're driving. You're just asking them questions so that they can steer themselves around. But ultimately, if we're making a left, I'm holding on for dear life because you're making a left. And that's fine. And you did that to me the last time I coached you. You're like, I want possibilities. I'm like, I want to give you answers, or I want to help you develop one of those answers. But you're like, no, this is what I want. And I had to honor that. You were in total control of that conversation. And I bet, I would hazard a guess, if I tried to develop one of those ideas, like the painting or something, I'm sure you still would have given another jerk of that wheel to take me down your path, right? Because you didn't want that. You wanted more ideas, more. You wanted to brainstorm. It was like one of the first things you said. I want to brainstorm ideas. I don't want to flesh them out. I want ideas.
Yeah, and I got to look at them afterwards, and some of them I don't want to do. But because I was given permission by you, and at my request, there's some language I'm going to use in coaching, to explore possibilities and brainstorm. I got to be more free. If I had to discern, and you asked the perfect question, what do I want to accomplish? If I had to felt I had to start to get some action, I might have limited my possibilities. Not interesting. Limited my possibilities. But afterwards I went, yeah. I got to sit with it. Did it excite me? Hey, my definition of fun, is that going to be fun, or is that just more work for me? Am I getting back into my old habits? So I got to reflect. There's the words. We think we got a nice little plan at the end of a coaching conversation. No, we need to digest that, sleep on it, discern, look at it. That's why we get people to write it down. And I got to strike a few of them off, going, nah. But there's a couple there I went, wow, that might be a good, fun start. But thank you for that. So I think this is all good, really good about Coachable, is our definition of what Coachable is, or, what the outcome should be. And yeah, I know I did throw you off when we talked about that afterwards, but just reminding everyone that I got what I needed.
No,
it's cool.
It was perfect. It was great. All right. That's all I got on coachability. Do you have anything else that you want to tap into?
No, it's messy. It's all I keep saying. It's messy.
Right. It's not a perfect package. And I think that's always a good reminder that it's never finished. Everything's unfinished. So if you know that it's going to be unfinished, maybe you can let go of it not being tied into a nice, neat little box before you send them on their way. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.